Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Promising Young Woman. So what Promising Young Woman is essentially about is we center on the character of Cassie Thomas, and she is this woman that's in her 30s, and her life really isn't going much of anywhere at the moment. She pretty much, her life consists of her working at this coffee shop by day, but at night she has these encounters with men every single night where she goes to a club, acts drunk, and basically waits for them to take advantage of her and basically try to expose them in that way. And her reasoning for doing this is because of a traumatic incident that has happened within her past, and when meeting up with someone from her past, it gives her the chance to ignite old flames and hopefully try to clear up some of the damage and, you know, just get the revenge once and for all. So Promising Young Woman, I was so excited for this film. I mean, I remember when I saw trailers for this, probably around this time actually is when the trailer started to come out. It was around the end of 2019 I started to see trailers for this film, and I was just so intrigued as to what it was going to be. It was so mysterious in that way, but it was a film that the more we got closer to it, the more I just became intrigued. And it's another one of those films where, to be honest, I didn't know if I was going to be able to see this year. I really thought we were going to have to wait for this film, which was a shame because it was getting such rave reviews coming out of Sundance and things like that. So I really didn't think I'd get a chance to see this one, but thankfully it finally did get a release on Christmas Day. I was able to see it 2 days before because they were doing a Dolby one night only screening at my theater, so I did end up going there and I saw it, and I have to say, Promising Young Woman, does it live up to the hype? Absolutely. Promising Young Woman is probably one of the best thrillers of its kind in a while. This is such a masterfully crafted and very unpredictable thriller that I don't really think anyone is really ready for. I don't think anyone is really expecting what this film is actually going to turn out, but it also is able to do so many other things in so many just amazing ways, and I don't know how they were able to pull it off. And there's so many things to love about this film, but we're just getting right now, starting off with the cast, and easily that's one of the best things about this film. Every single actor in this film, I think, is at the top of their game. I don't think anyone is half-assing it, which, I mean, why would you with material that's this good? But just in general, I think everyone does an amazing job. But it has to be said, this film is worth seeing alone just for the incredible performance from Carrie Mulligan in this film, who I think gives her best performance yet. And I just absolutely loved what she ended up doing here, because Cassie is a very hard character to, I think, play right. You know, this is the type of character where if you do too much, it could potentially end up very campy, and you could make this character feel almost, you know, too cartoony in that way, and make her feel just cartoony and make her feel superficial. But then if you don't do enough, it feels like this is a person that's, you know, it feels emotionless, it feels disingenuous, and Mulligan is able to find the perfect balance between the two. Cassie is very cold, she is very threatening, she's at points downright horrifying with what she ends up doing, but at the same time, you feel so much sympathy for what she's doing. You can totally get behind her actions because of the way that Mulligan goes about this character. She finds a way to craft a real person underneath all of that. Yes, again, Cassie isn't the most approachable of people, but there's a person there, and Mulligan really does a great job, I think, in really just fleshing out all the layers of Cassie, the way that she presents herself to people versus who she really is, the way that Cassie goes about doing these encounters versus how she actually does feel. All of that stuff is so beautifully presented. There are points where you will be laughing at Cassie, you know, with something that she said, but there will be other points where you're downright terrified of what she's doing, and it really is just, and there will be times where you'll feel really bad for Cassie because of what she's gotten herself involved in or what happened in her past and things like that. And it's really just due to Mulligan's amazing performance here. Again, it's very hard to make something like this work, but she really does do it. There were many times in this film where she very much had me fooled in how she was coming across, and I really did love that. And if it was up to me, she absolutely would be nominated for an Oscar, I think. I don't know if it's going to happen, but but I definitely think she should be. It's one of the best performances that I have seen all year, and like I said, I think the film is worth watching alone just to see her amazing delivery here, because she really does kill it in this film. Definitely one of my favorite performances of the year. But also Beau Burnham, I would say, is the other big standout in this movie, who, look, Beau Burnham is someone I've always really enjoyed. I've always found to be very funny. I've found to be very talented, but I truly don't think he has ever been as good as he is in this movie, because one, he is someone that is very charismatic. You know, you get his character, you understand how much he does care for Cassie, aside from all these other men who don't really treat her right versus how Ryan treats her. He does a very good job with that, but he also is delving into far more dramatic territory than he usually does, and it's really impressive, and I really liked what he ended up doing here, and the chemistry between these two is really good. They work with each other very well. You really do buy into their relationship throughout this film, which is very important considering it is one of the major plot elements of this film, and I think they really do sell it very well. But Burnham's performance, I think, is already very understated, and I don't think it should be, because I think he gives some amazing work here, especially in the back half of this film, where his character ends up going is not at all what I was expecting, and I really like what he ended up doing here. He was fantastic. The rest of the cast also gives some really great performances. Laverne Cox is very funny as Cassie's sort of colleague in the film. I thought she was definitely a lot of fun to watch. A lot of people in this film have almost bit parts. They don't have a lot to do, but they really do stick out, like, say, Alison Brie, for example, really only in this film for 2 scenes, but she's great for what she has. Connie Britton is amazing in this movie. Her only scene is the one you've seen in the trailer where, like, Cassie goes to her, but it's such a memorable scene, and she really kills it there. Even Alfred Molina, someone who I didn't even know was in this movie, I thought he did a great job here as well. Her parents, Clancy Brown and Jennifer Coolidge, the best role I've seen Jennifer Coolidge give in a long time. I thought that they both were fantastic here. I loved their performances within this film. Just this entire cast, really, I think everyone really is at the top of their game. I think this truly is an all-star cast, and definitely one of my favorite ensembles of the entire year. I think everyone just absolutely killed it here. But now we need to get to the directing and the writing, because holy shit, do I have a lot to say. I mean, Emerald Fennell as a director, I could not be more impressed by, because you look at the way that she directs this film, and there is literally so much that she's balancing here. This film is simultaneously a very dark comedy, and it also is trying to be a romantic comedy, but it also is trying to be this very dark sort of character study and this very dark sort of psychological thriller, and it seems like something that would be a complete clusterfuck. It really does seem like something that just wouldn't work, but Fennell is able to balance those elements so well in a way that honestly feels like a seasoned director. This does not feel like a directorial debut in any way, and yet it is, and she absolutely killed it here. I loved her directing throughout this entire film. I think it's absolutely one of the best parts of this film, and there's also just so much passion that she put into this. You can really tell she took the time to put as much effort into this film as she needed to, and I really did appreciate that. But I also really did love, just again, how she ended up going about this. I think the film is so well crafted in that way, and I just really loved her directing in this film. I think it's definitely one of the best points of this film for sure. I think definitely similar to Carrie Mulligan, I really do hope Fennell is able to get some kind of best directing nomination, because I think she definitely does deserve it. But her screenplay as well is amazing here, and I'll just be honest, it's going to be very hard to talk about this screenplay without getting into spoilers, but because of the fact that I really want you guys to watch this film, because trust me when I say this is a must-see film that you really have to see before this year ends. I'm going to try to skirt around spoilers as much as I can, but holy shit, just the amount of stuff that Fennell was able to put within this script. This is a very complex character study in that way, and without getting into too much, Cassie is essentially going on a revenge mission of sorts for something that has happened within her past, and I think they do a really good job in this film where going into it, you don't actually know what it's all about. Even the trailers, I mean, I watched them both back, they don't reveal any of the details of what Cassie's actually doing. So this really feels like a film you're going into as fresh as possible, and I really love that experience. It's very rare to go into a film knowing so little about the plot, but even if you've watched both trailers, you're fine. They don't really spoil much of anything, and I really love that about this movie because it makes you really intrigued as to what Cassie is doing. The opening scene of this film, it's just Cassie and her enticing this guy, and then you think she's drunk, and then oh my god, she's not, and you don't know what she's really doing. What are her true intentions? Why does she keep going about the same thing every single night? Doesn't this get old for her? And as the film goes on, you really start to connect the dots, and you start to realize why Cassie would do something like this. And I think the film does do a really good job with showing that on the surface, what Cassie is doing is psychotic. I mean, it seems crazy what she's doing. And it seems like she is going to these just ridiculous lengths to do it, but as the film goes on, you come to realize she's really the only one that would do something about it. I don't want to get into too much of what happened, but all I will say is that there was very little progress that happened when it came to this issue that occurred that Cassie's really trying to fight against. Nobody really did anything to stop it, and you can see why Cassie is so determined to make sure that something does happen, and I really did love seeing that in the film. It makes Cassie a very likable character in that way. Yes, she is very much an anti-hero, but you really do understand her motives behind everything she's doing. You really never are questioning, is she going too far with this? You understand why she needs to do this, and I think the film does a really good job of really getting you to understand that, but then also contrasting her relationship with Ryan, this other guy. You understand why that is conflating with what she's doing. Cassie, while she wants to pursue this relationship with Beau Burnham, she doesn't really know how to go about it. She's not the most approachable in that way. Like I said, there's a really great scene early on in the film where her parents are kind of chastising her because she doesn't really have a lot of friends. She doesn't really have, a love interest or anything like that, and they're very concerned, and you really do understand why to Cassie this isn't as important as what she's really doing. But you also understand that she does generally start to care for Ryan, and you also start to generally care for Ryan, and I think they told that story very well here. And again, it's one of the most unique screenplays that I've seen in a very long time, but it also is massively unpredictable. There are two big plot twists in this movie, neither of which I saw coming. Going into this movie, because when people say a movie's predictable, I go in with cautious optimism in that way. I go in basically not taking that with a grain of salt, thinking, okay, I probably have an idea of what's going to happen. No, what I thought was going to happen is not at all where they ended up going, and I was so utterly shocked as to what they ended up doing in this film. The places that they go in this film, you really don't expect them to. You don't expect this film to get as dark as it does, but you also don't expect Fennell to do something this ballsy, to do something this controversial. I mean, the way this movie ends, a lot of people are already very up in arms about, and that's when you know Fennell just really didn't care what people thought of this movie, and I really did appreciate that because it shows that she wanted to tell the story that she felt was important. She did what she felt needed to be done. She didn't care what audiences thought. She just cared about the story itself, and I really did appreciate that in terms of her writing here. I think all of that's very well done. But the other thing that's very impressive is that, again, a lot of this film is also very funny. There's a lot of very fun moments in this movie. Just the interaction between Cassie and Ryan at first, it's very awkward, and it's a lot of fun to watch because you recognize that this is the first guy that's approached Cassie in a while that's actually been nice to her. She's not just trying to, coerce into doing something and then exposes him for it because she's not actually drunk. So you understand why things are awkward there, but there are a lot of other really funny moments. Laverne Cox, for example, is hysterical in this movie. She had a lot of moments that just kept cracking me up throughout, and I really enjoyed what she ended up doing. But the film is also very thrilling. There were so many scenes that had me on the edge of my seat, and I love the way the film was written here, and the dialogue as well is just so good. There are so many memorable lines in this movie, none of which I can say because they're all spoilers, but the screenplay is truly a work of art here, and I really loved everything in terms of the writing. But the other thing that's really impressive to me about this film is that all of the issues that are presented here are done in a very unsubtle manner, and that actually benefits the film, I think. It actually helps the film tell the story that it wants to. Normally, I would have a big issue with that because it would feel like the film is just beating me over the head with this message and there was nothing else to the story beyond that message. But there very much is in this film, and I think because of the nature of the story and the details that are revealed to us and the little progression that is happening within this story beyond what Cassie is doing, I think it was very important for the film to, the message to be done in that way. To really just get across the idea that, yeah, this is a problem. This is something that doesn't get solved enough. And this really does need to be. And I think that's something that Fennell just did a really good job with. You can really just see how urgent this is. You really see how important this issue really is and how we need someone like Cassie to come in and put a stop to this kind of thing. And I really did love the way the film went about that. So I really don't have an issue with anything going on here screenplay wise. I think everything is very well done. You really do get a moment from everyone. You really get a chance to get to know who everyone is throughout this film, no matter how little screen time they have. I still felt like I got to know who everyone was. Like, for example, Alfred Molina's character, he's only in the movie for one scene, but through this one scene, they really do take the time to get you to understand how he feels about this experience, and he kind of like breaks down, and I really found myself caring for him as a character, and we only have known him for 5 minutes, and I think the fact they were able to do that is just really impressive to me. So again, I love the screenplay so much. Definitely one of my favorites of the entire year, I think. Cinematography, though, to this film is also very special because it's a very different kind of look in this film. I mean, there are a lot of points in this movie that are very bright. A lot of people have compared it to almost candy. You could literally like pick up and just start touching it, and it really does feel the way. There's a very specific look and feel to this movie, and I think it really does work with what they're trying to do. I can't really say why I think they chose to go with this specific visual style, but I think because of the type of story that they're telling, it really does make sense. And when the film goes to its much darker lengths in the third act, it starts to get a lot, the color itself starts to shift a lot. Suddenly things are far less vibrant. Suddenly there's a more darker hue, and I just think that was very impressive, the way they decided to go about that. And I really loved the color and just the look to this movie a lot. I think it's definitely one of the best parts of this film for sure. The score as well is fantastic. It's not used a lot, but whenever it's used, it's very effective. I think that Anthony Willis did a really good job of putting you into this very sort of sinister atmosphere, but at times also very emotional score, and I really enjoyed a lot. The soundtrack, I think, also is great. It ranges from pop music from today to something like, say, Something Wonderful from The King and I, or like an orchestral version of Britney Spears' Toxic. It really is all over the map in terms of the soundtrack, but it's one of the best I think I've seen all year. So many effective uses of music in this movie, and I think that's something else that this film just does a really good job with. And the editing, I think this film was very well edited for the most part. I never found myself bored. I never found myself disengaged with what was going on. I think the film is very well paced, especially in the first act. It really does take its time to get to the thick of things, but once it does, it really ramps up, and I think the film really just gets better and better from there. And the ending, like I said, it's one that's dividing many, but considering the story itself and the fact that this really is sort of like a hero's journey, I can't really think of a better way for the movie to end than the way that it did here. I think it was absolutely the perfect way to wrap things up. I really liked the way things ended in this film, and I really couldn't have asked for anything more. So I really did love the ending here. Guys, Promising Young Woman is just absolutely spectacular. This film really blew me away in the way it told its story. There's so many things that work in this film that just really shouldn't. It's got a it's got a truly masterful performance from Carrie Mulligan, who is just so multifaceted and just so incredible in her role throughout. It's got another great, and Beau Burnham as well also gives a really strong performance. It's got amazing directorial debut from Fennell, which is just so fearless and so risky in the ways that it just normally wouldn't be in terms of a directorial debut, and I think that's what's so impressive about it. An amazing screenplay, just some great cinematography, and overall, it tells a story that I think is very important, and it's also a film that, again, you're going into knowing so little, and I think that is so impressive in 2020. There's so many ways, especially in the age of, the coronavirus, where so many details get leaked about a film because another country has seen it, or so many things get out there because of other ways of happening, and the fact that that hasn't happened with this film, that you are going into it pretty much blind, not really knowing what's going on, I think that's something that is so impressive. I think that's something that is just something that we really should just embrace, something that we really should revel in, because we don't get that a lot, and that's one of the things that makes this film so special. It's truly one of the best thrillers that I have seen in a very long time. There are so many jaw-dropping twists that I think nobody is really going to end up predicting in this film. Just overall, Promising Young Woman blew me away in so many aspects. I really don't have too many issues with it at all, so because that, I am going to give Promising Young Woman an A+. Look, I went into this movie very excited for how it was going to turn out. I did not think it was going to be this good. This film is truly revolutionary, and I'm so happy that it is in theaters. I know it sucks, that we're still going through, what we are, and a lot of people don't want to go to the theater because of that, and I totally do understand that. I understand that people don't want to go anywhere because of the large crowds and things like that, but I mean it when I say this is the kind of film that the theater was made for. It really is. In every aspect, I really recommend seeing this film in a theater as soon as you can, because it is very much worth it for sure. I've seen this film twice with two very different crowds. Both of them, though, were very enamored by what was going on. Both of them were so invested in what was going on, and that kind of experience you just can't replicate at home, and it's why the theater experience I just cherish so much, and hopefully never goes away, because there just truly is nothing else like it. But either way, guys, so my review, Promising Young Woman. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie overall. Let your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.